Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar in partnership with Tive. We are really excited about today's presentation. We've got an awesome lineup with some great panelists that are going to dive into it for you here in just a second. Very quickly, though, I just wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping items with you. If at any point during today's presentation you have any technical issues that come up, please feel free to reach out to us in the audience chat function. It should be right there on your console. Also, as these gentlemen are chatting today, if you have any questions that come up that you'd like answered, please go ahead and shoot those to us in the Q&A box. We're going to try to get to those throughout the presentation as we're going along, and hopefully we can get to as many of those as possible. Also, just a quick reminder that we will be sending out a recording of today's presentation, so check your inboxes for that tomorrow. Be sure to share it with friends and colleagues. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Grace Sharkey to get us started. Grace.
Thank you so much, Katie. Welcome everyone to this wonderful webinar. I'm very excited today because, of course, when we're talking about technology in this space, everyone has the good old question of, well, where is the ROI? Well, we've got some wonderful players in the space and representatives of course, visibility tools themselves and who use those tools to bring some really great, of course, value to their customers at the end of the day. So why don't we start off with that wonderful crew introducing themselves. Let's start with you, Krinar. Go ahead.
Hey, Grace, great seeing you. Katie, thanks for the introduction. And really excited to be on this panel today with Adam and Saeed too. My name is Krinar Kamoni. I'm the CEO and founder here at Tive. And at Tive, what we do is we help companies all over the world understand exactly where their shipments are and also their condition. We'll dive into more, I'm sure, during the webinar here.
Love that. Adam, take it away.
Yeah, hey, it feels a little bit like I'm going full circle today. You know, I met Krinar in 2019 when he still, was going to trade shows with his 5G tracker. And, to be on this webinar today and to be on here with you, Grace, as well. We work together at Freightwaves. And then, of course, the fact that, you're here, Aman, where, you have really done a lot of work in this space over the years, and you have a really unique story. And to see you kind of a part of this logistics technology landscape and to kind of bring all of this full circle, I'm really excited to talk about, that evolution over time and to hear both of these founders' story. And, just to represent my company, I'm the CEO of the Robinson Agency. And we're very fortunate to be at the center of the supply chain, getting to tell the story and help companies in the supply chain and logistics market market their companies. So we're a marketing agency to help clients tell their story.
Love that. Aman, go ahead, knock it out of the park now.
Absolutely. Hey, Katie and Grace, thanks for having me again. And awesome to be sharing the table with amazing people and founders and CEOs like Krinar and Adam themselves. We are all birds of the same feather. We are trying to fly together, right? So yeah. I'm the CEO and founder of Highway Haul, which is the next generation digital freight platform for temp-controlled food and perishable food goods. And in my prior life, I was the director of supply chain technology at Walmart, one of the early founding engineers of Walmart Labs, to build a future grocery experience for the customers back in the days. And that's where I learned and picked up and fell in love with this ecosystem. Needs a lot of attention and love and technology angles. So we're going to talk about that later today. Looking forward to it.
I love that. We're all different types of angles to really bring a really great ideas and actionable items to leave with this webinar. So excited to have you all here today. And of course, for everyone, we're going to be diving into visibility with that, the true cost of that, of course, the benefits in the ROI of investing in real-time visibility programs, and how to quantify that, right? It's always about metrics whenever you're making any type of investment, especially in this space. How are we setting up those metrics and following through those metrics? And of course, at the end of the day, how do we actually achieve that through the actions within our teams as well? Let's start off with the big question, I think for today in particular is, what does the lack of visibility really cost someone? Let's start with you, Krinar, and especially working with customers. What's the cost of not having visibility of our freight, of our shipments today, and our overall supply chain as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the cost of visibility is very high these days. I mean, the first of all, if you want to be a company that has advantage out there and competitive advantage in the space, if you don't, supply chain logistics is a big competitive advantage for you. And to be advantageous in supply chain logistics, you really need to understand where your shipments are and what's happening with your shipments throughout the globe. And without that visibility, you really can't measure what's happening. And if you can't measure, you can't improve. You cannot be better than your competitors. So visibility's cost is quite high if you don't have it. And think of a couple examples. If you're shipping fruits, vegetables, produce, and they just temperature excursions happen, they don't arrive on time and in full, and they arrive at a retailer, and retailer rejects that load. Not that you just lose revenue, then you have to go to wholesale. You have to also deal with insurance claims. You have costs on labor, and then worst of all, your brand it gets a hit too, right? Because now your brand's not at the store, it's not at the retailer. And costs on top of that, then you have customers who have maybe potentially high value goods, and there's damage, there's theft. Knowing all the time, in real time, exactly where your goods are and what the condition of those goods are is very critical for anybody who's competing in the market space today.
I love that, right? If you don't have the visibility tools in place, you can't even start to think about the metrics that you can provide the customers as well. Adam, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
Yeah, and I think working at a marketing agency and running one, my clients are also going to demand a return on their investment in marketing. And I think whenever you're looking at any kind of ROI calculation, or even if you're thinking about purchasing visibility, as an example, you have to really think about your own personal story in relation to your shipments. And so we have an explosion of technology in the industry. And I think the buyers of that technology, the BCOs, the shippers, other logistics technology providers, one of the things they have to ask themselves is wait, what are my problems? And what are the details around my shipments that require visibility? So you kind of have to tell yourself a story to get to ROI or to build automations. The easiest way to do that in today's environment is to think about your story. So let's think about this scenario. I kind of wrote this down ahead of the webinar. Let's say I'm Sally, the director of a produce manufacturer of logistics, right? And I need to reduce total costs. The market and the demand for goods is not as high as it was maybe 2 years ago. My CFO needs me to really look at everything and make sure that I don't spend too much money in logistics. Well, how do you do that? Okay, in relation to visibility. So I'm Sally. If I have 2,500 shipments a year at $100 cost per shipment, I spend and I want to have visibility on 50% of those shipments. I currently have 3 full-time employees tracking those shipments today, and that costs me about 150 grand a year just for them to track that. If I could implement better visibility technology, I can maybe reposition one full-time employee to focus on more customer service facing things. So I'm reducing the cost of resources and visibility. And currently I have 5% of my shipments incurring a claims cost at $100 per claim, costing me an additional $25,000 a year in wasted money. I also have some perishables I ship that see 10% of shipments that have spoilage due to poor visibility, costing me another $37,000 of wasted product. I'd like to reduce spoilage by just 50% to reduce my cost by 50% of implementing better visibility tools. Due to some of these issues, because of the spoilage, we've also lost customers. And so, if you're a technology company trying to sell visibility, if you don't know that story, or you can't guide the buyer into that story to think about how visibility is going to improve their business and really get specific on the details, it's very nearly impossible when you're buying anything to get an ROI out of it. So I think creating stories of how they're getting ROI and what they really need and applying solutions to those needs, not necessarily just a panacea of visibility.
Yeah, and you touch on something too, which is that opportunity cost, right? Of you bring up the employees could be putting their time towards. And I think when we talk about the lack of the cost of not having visibility on your shipments and things of that nature, that's a big part of that too. Aman, anything you'd like to add to that as well?
Yeah, of course. I mean, visibility has multiple paradigms as well. What kind of visibility we are talking? Location visibility only? Well, probably not. It's about the temperature, the humidity, the sensitivity, etc. And I mean, the sad part of our ecosystem is that 40% of the food that is grown never gets consumed, right? And somebody like a highway haul player comes in, like 50% of the life of produce is spent on the trucks. And long story short, with all the claims and rejections that Krenar and Adam mentioned, it all adds up to a whopping $15 billion of food getting wasted during transit. That's the North Star that some of us are jointly aligned on. Give that visibility. This $15 billion should be reduced by 50% and 80%, and the world needs more food, right? So I think, long story short, the lack of visibility will result in a suboptimal customer experience. We are not going to make our customers look good, and therefore their customers will not look good. And then delays, fines, detentions, everything kicks in.
Yeah, it all wraps into each other, right? And that's, I mean, even presenting that $15 billion problem, we can even go down a rabbit hole on waste being a big part of this as well. So it's even more outside of just our four walls of our business that the costs are measured. So when we look at ourselves and say, hey, we're the biggest contributors to GHG, et cetera, then maybe we should be considering how much waste that we could help prevent through visibility as well. So I love that. Let's go on to the benefits of a real-time visibility and how to generate that ROI over time. Let's start with you, Adam. What are your thoughts on that in particular?
Well, I think that, ROI is one component of it, right? You have within a company, let's say a shipper or a logistics service provider, different stakeholders. And you have the CFO, you have the transportation, you have marketing, you have customer service, and there's just in what you said there. And I think to Aman's point, every single one of those stakeholders have a use case, and every single one of those stakeholders have needs and wants that they're trying to get out of their department. And then they have a shared goal as a company to improve revenue, improve margins. And how do you do that? Well, you get all of those stakeholders together to collaborate and say, what does this investment in visibility really mean for us as a company? Now, I told the story of just Sally, the transportation director, but gosh, wouldn't you think that Sally's colleague in marketing or customer service would love to tout that we're reducing food waste, which reduces putting wasteful food on trucks that use emissions that cause, less sustainability. And wouldn't you like the customer service rep to be able to talk to, or the procurement people to talk to maybe a Walmart or a Costco and say, we've improved our service, levels, we're getting there on time, and wouldn't the CFO really love it if they said, hey, Sally keeps our customers happy. She's proactive. And gosh, they're just saying great things about us. They're using their visibility and their investments in their tech stack in the supply chain as a competitive advantage to take market share. Because my kids, even people Krenar's age, I think I might be older than Krenar. I'm sorry, Krenar. That was just, I just wanted to make a joke. But even people Krenar's age should expect a very good experience in their transacting, right? And if you bring in like an Aman in your portal with Highway Haul as an example, he's trying to make it, and his team trying to make it easier for those people to transact. Well, besides the ease of transacting, which is one part of it, what about once you've made the transaction and the freight's in transit, right? If both of the participants in that marketplace in Highway Haul are achieving their goals, because a carrier doesn't want to spoil anything, a driver doesn't, they don't want to be the one to be blamed for that issue, then all stakeholders are getting those benefits. So it's a team sport. And whether we want to believe it or not, it's going to take technology providers working together, and then technology providers understanding the wants, needs, and the problems their customers face, and multiple people within that customer, those stakeholders, and what they're trying to achieve, and aligning everything towards and catering towards those problems.
I love that. I think on the surface, people hear visibility and they think that that's the ability to answer the question, where's my shipment now? And it goes so much deeper than that. And I think the metrics that you bring up in particular, and being able to even have the values that Aman and Highway Hall have, and be able to provide the analytics that Krenar and Tive can provide, is where it really gets deeper. Aman, do you want to touch on this at all as well?
Of course, I mean, we are living and breathing this every day in what we are doing. So ultimately, this whole benefits, when you start talking about visibility at a company level, at a leadership level, and then all the way down to the people who are actually running the show, it enables you to set up the right KPIs and metrics that the whole organization should be tracking, because ultimately you respect what you inspect, right? So whether it is the OTP or on-time delivery or on-time in full, etc., all in all, we are all wanting an impeccable customer experience for everyone that we are trying to serve, right? So the key benefits in terms of the metrics, KPIs will be if you are wearing the P&L hat of a company, you should expect to see reduced freight spend, in our case, let's say annually, right? You should have the last year detention and the fines that you paid should come down with a good visibility solution in the years to follow, right? And the chargebacks that your customers are charging you for being late or for being delayed and for the rejections and the claims, all of these metrics should be coming down. The needle should be moving down on all of these metrics, right? Even the accuracy of a charge like detention will improve with this, right? Because when did the driver check out? When did the driver check in? Just because something has been mentioned on the BOL in a handwriting doesn't mean that that's accurate. With the true visibility solution, with the geofencing and whatnot technology, checkout, manage check-in, loading times, unloading times, and all those things are really playing well. And ultimately, if we are serving the customers like Walmarts and Targets, we are helping them in their overall supply chain to keep their inventory shelves stocked with the right items at the right point in time.
Perfect answer. And it's interesting, we actually got an audience question that you touched on as well with that answer. So you're reading the audience's mind at this time now, Aman. Love that. I'm going to pass this over to you, Krenar, because I think you can add on to this as well. And for our audience, we do have our Q&A that we're going to do throughout the whole webinar. So feel free to jump in there and add your questions as well. What does ROI mean to different can you explain how visibility can reduce some other in-transit costs, just like Aman just touched on, even when the product isn't lost or damaged, i.e. detention, dwell fees, etc.?
Yeah, I think Aman answered that pretty well around detention and dwell fee, just understanding where trucks are and with geofences and location. That is I think just a good way to view it, because the truth relies on exactly where the GPS data tells you where the shipment is. And if you 100% believe that and can see that, I think that's where you really, with visibility, you can prove that to a customer or get better or work with your carrier to improve that, or work with the receiver so those fees don't happen in the future. But if it's purely a phone tag between the receiver and the carrier and you don't know what's happening with a shipment, you're never going to get there. So visibility really helps you achieve that. But I just wanted to add a little bit on some of the points that Adam also and Saeed made, which Aman made, which were very clear. And Adam, I love the story that you paint, especially with a CFO and customer success. It's not just a transportation leader that's looking at a map and seeing where his or her shipments are. It's more than that, right? And on the customer success side, imagine if you had full visibility on the shipments. They're going to the receiver, they're going to your customer that you're shipping to, and you can create these analytics that you can have much better conversations as a customer success leader, and you're working with your customer. When you sit down with your customer, you can have amazingly better conversations with the KPIs and the metrics that also you mentioned, Aman, and say, look what's happened last month. These are how many shipments we delivered. These were the ones we're late. We're working with this particular carrier. We're going to improve it. These ones that had temperature excursions. These are some of the routes that we took. We can see that if we take this other route, it's going to shorten our time by 12 hours, shorten our time by 24 hours. We're going to tell this other carrier to take these other routes so we can deliver a product on time and in full for you instead of being late in some of the cases. But when you don't have that data, you don't have that visibility, the quality of the conversations with customers, it's primarily on day-to-day basis. what's happening today? Did it arrive? Did it not arrive? Where is it? What's happening today?
Yeah.
Did it arrive? Did it not arrive? So
It's
if you want to
anecdotal,
improve that
reactive, and not strategic at all. It's
at all,
painful.
and if you want your customers to really love you, right, and really want to keep working with you as a vendor, and they want to grow with you, when you increase that quality of your conversation through visibility, it takes it to the next level. It takes it to that strategic level that Adam just mentioned.
Love that. Well, let's move on to quantifying all of this as well. I think that's a huge part. Adam, I'd love to hear from you, right? That we've made all these investments. How do you quantify the ROI of that real-time visibility?
Well, you can't quantify anything if you don't have a mechanism by which to quantify it.
Yes.
Right. And so, Kurnar said it pretty well. It's getting the data, and I think even before you invest in any kind of visibility, you should probably understand, those different drivers of costs in your organization. And if you look at the market, right, and if your cost per mile is at historic lows in the contract and spot market, let's say, the container prices are pretty back to normalized levels, and there are not as much demand on goods as there was. You're going to sit there and go, okay, what can we do to look at our business and understand the drivers of the costs of it? And the only way that you can quantify that ROI is to have first set a benchmark before you invested. And you may have some visibility tools today, but I think it's important that, again, you collaborate as a C-suite or a leadership team, and you say, what are we really trying to achieve? And you start with the outcome first, and you work your way back. And you say, okay, when we go in front of a visibility provider, and I think Kurnar and Aman would probably back this up, it's not like we always want to paint a rosy picture if you're a visibility provider. The reality is that you want to get a version of the truth. Just like if I don't know how many calories are in the things that I eat and I'm just guessing, I'm probably going to guess wrong, and my desire for sugar is going to outweigh my logical reason. And so I need a mechanism by which to not anecdotally guess at which I need to do with my supply chain, or where I need to root out cost, or where I need to improve service levels. And so, one, it takes a deep passion of knowing your own data. And then two, I think both companies like, Tive and Highway Haul would say to their customers, we're not afraid to give you the truth. This isn't we're going to give you the greatest ROI and promise everything. We're going to actually meet the right expectations. We're going to help you capture that data. We're going to help you prove that we made a difference. And we're going to follow up with you quarterly to prove that. And so it's incumbent upon these visibility providers to walk their customers through that. And if the picture isn't rosy, to be absolutely honest and transparent about the data in which we're seeing, because that is the only way that you can make a change towards what you want to see. So be willing to hear the truth, and don't be offended by it, but stay ahead of it so you can reach your goals as a corporation.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, the data is not always it's not going to prove your assumptions, right? A lot of times it's going to showcase a lot of the problems that you're here to fix as the provider of logistics, right? And that's a great point as well. Aman, I'd love to hear your side of this question as well.
Let me just continue to what Adam just mentioned. So true. Data will not always excite you. It will make you honest. And that's why there's a subtle difference between the data and the insight. Good systems and good solutions provide the insight as well. I mean, everyone is sitting on millions and billions of rows of data, but the data needs to be converted into insights. Right? Mm-hmm. So I remember at Walmart when we were all transforming this whole let's build the future e-commerce experience and whatnot, when we started interviewing and evaluating the data, small example, we realized, why are the customers calling our call centers at that time? What are the key reasons they're calling for? More than 40% of the calls was about where is my order? We call it WISMO, W-I-S-M-O, where is my order? Really? Why can't customers self-help themselves? This is such a archaic and a very easy thing to solve. Well, it was not thought about like that because there was no KPI or metric built to track these kinds of things. So this is one of the very minuscule examples, and obviously, whatever. That's why my personal belief is whatever has happened in e-commerce back in the days will now need to happen in the freight and the ag and the food space. Hyper automation, artificial intelligence, and all those fun buzzwords, but still that is for real. It's going to happen, and that's what people like Krenar and some of us, we are trying to do our bit to it. And the ROI, again, it will be, hey, your annual freight spend should be reduced. You should be paying less fines and detention. Your claim should be going down with every passing month and years. And actually, if you're a broker, then your wins will be different. There will be different ROI. Then you're making your customer look good, because if you are serving your customer better, that's a direct loss of revenue opportunity for you. If you do not meet those KPIs for the customers, then it's a top line impact for you. For the grower, for the shipper, for our customer, it is the bottom line impact if they have to shave off these many dollars as part of the claims or the losses or the tracking cost. Some large enterprises, they deploy an army of people just for making phone calls, as Krana was saying, right? Where are you, buddy? What is the temperature? Call me every 1 hour to report your location and things like that. That is still happening, unfortunately. So imagine that's one of the questions that I ask to my customers too. Hey, what is your growth plan? Staying flat, reducing, or going up by 10, 20%? Oh, I need to double myself in 2 years, my revenue. Sure. Do you want to double your team size as well? As you're doubling your revenues? Probably not, right? So these are the things that we need to be challenging through the data.
I love that. And Krenar, do you want to add to that too? We do have an interesting question from the audience that I want to touch on with the three of you, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on that too.
Yeah, just quickly. Just to follow up on Aman's double the team if you're doubling the revenue, not a good way to grow. Yeah. So I think as Adam was saying, just look at what you're spending today, last month, last 3 months, last 6 months, especially work closely with the CFO. Look at the OpEx, especially around operating expenses. Is the team spending a lot of time and money on check calls? Is our revenue going down at a particular customer because we're losing to another customer because the other customer is better at supply chain logistics? And we used to do 100 loads a week. Now we're doing 50 loads a week with that particular retailer or particular receiver. And why is that happening? Is it because they're business, or because we're losing business because our supply chain logistics is not good? Look at how many insurance claims, how many people got involved in that. And if you want to create what I call operating leverage, it's a well-known term. Operating leverage doesn't mean you grow twice in revenue, twice in people. You grow twice in revenue with 1.2 kind of OpEx and increase. By creating operating leverage is by using technology, especially like visibility tools like ours, and maybe even utilizing 24/7 monitoring teams that, for instance, we offer. Instead of hiring all that team inside your building, inside your company, companies like Tive and others can watch shipments for you. They can look at shipments for you. You give us the standard operating procedures. You can double in revenue, and you don't have to double the team. There's somebody else watching these shipments. So there's so many other ways to look at it, but there's a ton of benefits on ROI here.
I love it. And I love that this whole team agrees that when you have the problems of growth, you don't just keep adding employees to that problem. So that's a fun fact everyone can leave here with as well. And to touch on these different roles, though, and I think you each kind of gave your examples in this, but I'd love to even hear maybe a bit more, even in back office operations, customer experience, even, someone in a financial role too, CFO. What does ROI mean to different functions at a company? Krenar, if you want to start this one off, love that.
Yeah, CFO is easy, right? Like they have to invest $50, $100, $200 million into visibility. They better be saving 5 to 10x to 20x on that, right? Now you just got to show the math and look at it where that savings is coming from, or not losing revenue or grow revenue, or that math becomes pretty straightforward on the CFO side. On operations, do you want your operations team and transportation team to really just all day put fires and be on phone calls trying to understand where the shipments are? Or do you want them to be more strategic on what we're going to do next week, how we're going to grow this, how we're going to make the company more efficient, and not just every single day putting out fires. I think that's just not good for the team. It's not good for the company. It's not good for the culture. It's not good for anyone. So that actually, even if you think of like growth and career opportunities, it helps everybody in the operations team become think to the next steps instead of just putting out fires every single day they walk into the office. And then customer experience, I think I already touched upon that. The customer experience, in my view, other than when you sell a product and you have great user experience, all of that on the software side, but as customer service, the experience improves with the quality of the conversations that you have with the customer. And the quality of the conversation can be much better if you have data and analytics around what's happening with the deliveries that you're doing to your customers. So I think I'll just touch upon those three, and I'm sure others can touch more on maybe in sales and business development, which I can keep going to, but maybe Adam and Aman have.
Let's go with you, Aman. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, CFOs are simple, as you said. I mean, simple in double quotes, obviously. Hey,
almost complicated. It sounds simple.
Exactly right. This is my P&L. This is my top line. This is my cost of goods sold, and I better see a gross margin of this much. And what we are talking about, that's a direct hit in a good way. The gross margins will increase with a good visibility solution, with reduced, back and forth manually tracking the location and the temperature, and not only tracking, recovering. Adam, as you said, the proactive versus the reactive part of it, right? People are good at reacting. They have built these kinds of platforms and this ecosystem for decades and 100-year-old. We know how to do when hits the fan, right? But we need to be more preventative. So, sales guy, growth. Get me the top line. Customer acquisition. 3 things. And that person is good. I'm doing my job well. But then it comes down to fulfilling the customer's promise. That's when the operations and the customer success teams come in. The sales team will, okay, we can do this. We got this. Give me 100 loads. Consider it done. Now, guys, go do it. We call it the customer promise in high hall. Hey, now deliver to the promise. And that's their responsibility. So their KPIs will be different. The CSAT, the customer satisfaction scores, the NPS, the net promoter scores, right? Customer retention is it's all our responsibility joined. But ultimately, the weightage for each of these umbrellas in an organization will be different. So I have acquired the customer. You guys are responsible for retaining the customers. We are all working together day to day to make things happen.
Love
Yeah,
that.
and since you guys
Adam.
covered it all, I'll just say that it helps the entire world. I mean, it helps the economy. It helps the global economy, if you think about
True.
it, right? Like, look at inflation prices. It was demand driven. It was supply shortages causing increased prices. I mean, there were 1,000 tweet threads about the price of eggs and how they went up. And, if a company's able to go to market as a young startup, and maybe they're an egg producer and they want to take some market share, well, how do you do that? You get the best tools, the best tech stack, you get the best talent, and then you make a difference, and then you market the crap out of that, and then you have a flywheel of activity, and that's how the young upstarts are going to take on the stalwarts. And, we're seeing that there are a couple of companies in our industry that are just duking it out at the top, right? Amazon and Shopify, and Dave Clark goes to Flexport, and this industry finally made it onto 60 Minutes, and it's getting the limelight. But why did we get the limelight? Not for positive reasons. Nobody ever really talks about what visibility and particularly technology or information sourcing is doing to stave off recessions. And if you think about it, with zero interest-free money for the last 12 years, it maybe was not hard to stave off a recession. You also have the Fed doing quantitative easing or, increasing interest rates. We just had another one yesterday. Well, what if we started thinking about, in an environment that we're in today where the interest rates are maybe normalized, how do we continue to stave off recessions? Well, inventory is cash. And the better that you can do at taking care of your inventory, and if it's in produce, that's food waste, or, it, for whatever reason, not making it where it was intended, you add that up with all of the companies in the economy, you're going to quickly get out of whack. And what this technology can do is really keep the global economy humming along. And despite the pandemic, and despite the predictions of recession after recession after recession globally, we've been fairly resilient. And I wouldn't say it's because, you know, consumer demand is skyrocketing or whatever. It's because the supply chains have invested in technology to better sense customer demand, to reduce spoilage, and to get more context around their shipments. And I think that's what visibility has to do. It has to give context, because with context, we can extend that supply chain as a team sport and really work on making customers happy, so our companies are profitable, so the logistics technology providers are growing, and because overall, as a society, we can eat more food that's fresher, we can have less recessions, and we can keep our jobs, and we can do jobs that we love. Do you think people really love hounding a carrier to find out where their avocados are? They don't.
Yeah.
Not at all. Well, and it's
But
interesting too.
if you want to
Oh, go
start
for
a
it.
company just like selling widgets, selling the eggs, like I agree with Adam. Call Flexport and Shopify, you're all set.
Yeah.
You got everything for the consumers pretty fast. It's amazing how that's getting democratized, right? Because Amazon had the advantage there. Now Amazon's becoming available to everybody, and this is going to be great for the economy. It's going to be great for everybody who wants to sell products. But I wanted to just add one more thing on the sales side. If you're there's tens of thousands of logistics companies in America and throughout the globe for sure. If you're in sales and logistics and you want to win, you want to beat the competition, and you want to provide a better service, visibility is a great value-added service. And whether it's ranges, right, from $1 to $50 to $100, depending on what kind of visibility you're looking at, you can add that to the freight and provide it as a service to the customer, and it can just be invisible to the customer, but customer now gets this amazing service that they know exactly what's happening with their shipments. They know, they get the KPIs, they get the metrics, they get the analytics, and the 3PL wins.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Our next question, I think you all have kind of touched on this, but I'll give you a chance to answer it directly. What does achieving ROI with real-time visibility look like in action? I think, Adam, you really showcased that, right? And Krenar, you both brought up the Flexport Shopify thing. I mean, for me, you're democratizing becoming a seller. I mean, what the barrier of entry of starting a t-shirt company. I mean, you could get Shopify, you could get Stripe, you could build a website within an hour, and here you go, you're an entrepreneur. Let's talk about what the actions look like. What does the world look like once we start achieving the ROI through visibility? Aman, do you want to touch on that?
Of course. I mean, I want to probably put some live examples that we witness every other day or once in a while, and we try to bring down such incidents to as minimal as possible, right? Yeah. So once we have the right visibility tools and an ecosystem in place, you will be the first person to know that something is not going normally. For instance, the other day, there was a driver who was taking a break, which is fine. Now the system knows what are the hours of service, and this driver was full, 10 hours or whatever, right? And then waiting for 15 minutes break, 20 minutes, half an hour, okay, fine, you'll still catch up on the on-time delivery and things like that. But this guy was not moving for probably more than the amount of time that he should be taking the break. And we immediately got engaged with the driver and make sure that, hey, what's happening? There was something that we took care of it, making sure this visibility ensured on-time delivery. On the other instance, we are seeing the driver is following the reverse route, the route that was given to him from point A to point B, was going backwards. And not like 1 mile or 2 mile kind of backwards. Like, so we saw this trend, we get alarmed. What's happening? We call the dispatcher, etc. Oh, you know what? He's gonna go to his family for the lunch and this and that. Well, this was not a part of the deal, but let's track the ROI, not ROI, the ETA, etc. From that location to this location, we are still looking good, because that customer is where we are delivering to the receiver is the first come, first serve basis style of a facility, which means it is not strictly by appointment. 1 p.m. is 1 p.m. Anytime during the day is fine. This guy is good. If it was not the case, we would have said, sorry, lunch is on us, but you please take a U-turn now. Things like that. Similarly, we are shipping strawberries every other day, which is one of the most sensitive commodities, right? Now, the way we have the temperatures of the strawberries, whether 33 degrees, 34 degrees, the trailers need to be pre-washed, pre-cooled, and pre-conditioned as they enter the warehouse. Sometimes it happens, and drivers go above and beyond to record the pulp temperature too. Our trailer is spot on, but the product being loaded is hot, right? So claim may happen, will happen. Record the pulp temperature right then, sorry, unload it, cool it, whatever, and then. So all these things, when you have the visibility, you can make the right decision in the best interest of the hat you are wearing or for the customer that you are representing.
Love that. Also, thanks for the trigger of loading those warm melons in Florida on that pretty cold trailer, because that happens every single day, and I'm sure everyone on here has dealt with that too. Kurnar, do you want to add to that, especially providing a lot of the technology that helps with this?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple examples here, right? But it just in general, it's almost a no-brainer for if you think of high value, time sensitive, temperature sensitive shipments. If you we have customers who are in the car wash factory business or just car wash places. Even if you're shipping an inexpensive part to the car wash place, and that car wash is off, it's shut down, and it cannot work without that part, and you don't know where it is, and you're chasing it with calls, it's quite costly, especially if you have to shut it down for 24 hours. But if you know where it is, you can immediately go get it, or you can figure out a way to get that part so that the car wash factory can keep going. That's huge savings, even though the load is not that expensive or the value of the load is low. We've had that happen. We've had a customer who ships very expensive vacuum cleaners, things of that nature, and we were able to save them close to $1 million because we detected, using our trackers right here, there's a light sensor that detects if somebody opens the trailer, and they were able to call the law enforcement and figure out exactly where the load is and save them the money. And same with Geodis, which is a 3PL. They were doing shipments for a very large company that ships a lot of servers around the globe, and they were able to save $1 million worth of shipment because it got loaded at a tarmac at a wrong airline, and they were scratching, like, if without us, they were scratching their head trying to figure out where things were for a day or two. But in this case, because they knew exactly where it was, they were able to save that $1 million shipment. Otherwise, who knows what would happen with it. And if you think of hundreds of thousands of dollars, as you mentioned, Aman, around berries, if those berries are above 40 degrees Fahrenheit for 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, it's game over. Whereas with 24/7 monitoring, we can know exactly what's happening with them. We can call the truck driver. We can make sure the reefer's in good condition and save that shipment. So the ROI in action looks like that.
Love that. And Adam, anything you want to add? I mean, you had some pretty great ones there too, but any other ones you want to touch on?
Well, I just think, if I'm going to the car wash and it's shut down because a part didn't make it,
There we go.
I'm really not going to think very highly of that car wash. I'm like, you can't freaking figure out how to run a car wash? There's an option down the street. And, I know that I've been around and have kids and have had to go to the grocery store quite a bit in my life. And you kind of get this sense, right, where say Alpine, ships into Costco, Target, and Walmart. Do I blame Alpine or do I blame Walmart, Costco? And do I start going, I go to Kroger because of this, because they have good produce. I go to Walmart because of this. I go to Costco because of this. I go to Target because of this. And that's reality.
That's reality.
People have to feed their families. They get a perception of companies based on the experience with the product. And unfortunately, it's not in a bubble wrapped package, those strawberries, because you got to display them, and that's part of the gig, right? And so I think if you're a company, what it allows you to do, if you think about the industry at large, we're starting to see this movement where it's less tactical, more strategic, more partnership. If you have forwarders, you have 3PLs, you have freight brokerages, they're arming up on their tech stack. They're understanding that the customer, their shipper customer, really doesn't care about the minutia per se. They care about the outcome. And those forwarders and those 3PLs and those brokerages who understand that technology gives them the ability to have a superpower. And that's sourcing the right information at the right time with enough specificity, dependent and relevant to that specific freight, they're going to be able to have a conversation that gets them the freight over and above their competition. And so I just think that it really matters to consumers, this visibility thing. Does the average Joe know about visibility in the supply chain? No, but they know what a bad strawberry looks like. They know if Walmart has good ones or not. And they know if their competitor has better ones, they're going to shop there. So, I think it's really important for these companies to understand their role in providing the customer that experience, because it's all just a means towards that end. And if you're not putting the customer at the heart of that outcome, to where they're holding the strawberry in their hand, or maybe one of the kids steals a grape because I was told you get free grapes at Walmart. If it doesn't taste good, they're going to know it pretty quickly.
Yeah. You see a lot too with e-commerce, right? Being able, for example, I was on, I think, Walmart's site the other day looking for something, and they're able to tell me if it's not in the store today, when it will be in the store, what days it'll take to ship to me. And as a consumer, instead of saying, let's say they didn't have any of that, I might just go to, now everyone knows where I live, Meijer or somewhere else to get that item, right? And I think that's what's important, right? As a consumer, I trust Walmart more, knowing that, okay, well, here are all the options and I'm going to be a patient consumer and wait for it, because you've made that investment into letting the consumer know where things are going to be at certain times. Now, actually putting this into action using visibility tools can be difficult. And this question now for the audience, from the audience and audience members as well. We have about 15 minutes here if you want to put in any other questions you have for our wonderful panel here, so we can answer those as well. How difficult is it to implement real-time visibility solutions within your business? And what, there, like that smile, Adam, and what problems can arise from that? Let's start with you.
Yeah. No, well, Aman really should get this question. Here's the deal. Aman has had to implement visibility solutions.
True.
Right?
Yes.
Just like Walmart. Yeah. See, Walmart, Aman understands the Russian nesting doll of customer experience, right? Because Walmart figured out, well, shit, apologies for the bad word, but we're adults, right? I'm wearing a hat. It's casual. Here we go. Anyway, Aman knows from his time. There we go, baby. Get it casual. Aman knows from his time at Walmart. Walmart said, you know what? That's the reality. The customer's going to blame us. So what do? Well, we put in some pretty strict rules that says Alpine needs to get us our strawberries in good condition, on time, and in full, and we need to make that happen. And Aman had to make that happen. And then crazy Aman went and said, I'm going to start a freight marketplace for produce shippers. And so Aman, again, you go, well, it's maybe Highway Hall's responsibility to be the steward with our customer base. So maybe tell that story, Aman, because you've actually implemented visibility solutions.
Right, no, of course. It's a loaded question. How much does it take to, and how difficult is this? Well, not at all. Just sign up with the right provider, right? And I can ask the Krina the same question. Hey, how difficult it is? He'll say, hey, here's my right device. Just put it in your truck and you're live, right? Now, what Highway Hall has done is we have partnered with Tive. So behind the scene, we are integrated via APIs. So now Krina's customers, who are not our customers, who may be potential our customers tomorrow, hey, we use Tive, etc. Don't worry, we are already integrated. It's a live example. Adam, the other day, the customer said, hey, we got a Tive alert that this temperature is this and that. We already know. Thanks, but no thanks. We are already on it. The driver has been informed, and this is what is happening. So implementing a visibility solution these days in this world in 2023 where we are in is just signing up. First name, last name, company name, and you are registered, your profile is approved, and you are live, actually. It's as simple as that. Kunal, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it is straightforward. I agree, and we do try to make it simple, and simple also sometimes is making things really simple is not easy. But we've tried to do the same thing here. Is if you want visibility immediately, we ship you these trackers in your warehouse. You have 100 of them, 200 of them, 1,000 of them, and every time a load shows up, you press a button, put it on, and off you go. You have visibility. There's not much work there. And if you're using Highway Haul, if you're using other visibility providers, if you're using other transportation management systems, and you want to integrate with those through APIs, we can easily do that too.
I was reluctant to ask you the question because I know that your company's actually made it quite easy now to implement that. So but could you maybe touch on quickly for the audience why the passion behind Tive and the difficulties that you're looking to solve, right? That have made it harder for people to invest in and get the ROI so quickly that Aman's even discussed from real-time visibility products.
Say that again.
So it's almost the opposite question. What have you helped solve that has been so difficult in the past, that now you have this wonderful functioning product that's making it quite easier?
Yeah, I think one of the things that it's been difficult, and I think still difficult, is how do you get 100% visibility of your shipments? I think today getting to 60, 70, 80%, 90%, maybe even in some cases, is attainable and achievable if you're just looking at purely location. But if you want to get to 100% visibility and want to know exactly where your shipments are, regardless of telematics, regardless of ELD, regardless of trucking carrier, regardless of geography, regardless of mode of transportation, that's one thing that we've made much easier than ever before, where you just press a button, put it on a shipment, and now you know exactly, independent of all those variables, exactly where the shipment is. I think that's a big one.
Right, and that's very important. I mean, the underscoring over here is kind of what you said is simplifying things take the most time. Right?
Correct.
It's the most complex thing. And when we launched our Highway Haul First app back in the days, I mean, I remember we were buying free phones, chasing the drivers, just use it. It's free, whatever, right? Back in the days. And then we identified the friction. Why are they not using the app? Because yes, we need to get to the 90% plus visibility as best as possible, and nobody's able to do that like consistently, right? So we made the sign up process and the setup so simple that, hey, it is pretty much 2 clicks and you're done. You remember that Amazon had filed a patent for one-click order. We made that as our target, that, hey, let's have a patent for one-click sign up in the driver app that we have for Highway Haul. And finally, that patent recently got approved. So we are one of the coolest sign-up driver apps in the industry, hopefully. So these things.
That's a pretty neat kind of thing, And I've accidentally bought a lot of things with that one-click button, but it was very efficient. And it's all about reducing. I always worry about that, and I'm glad you made that point, Aman. Like these carriers, these truckers, like how many apps can even be held on a phone? And I'm sure they're at some sort of limit. So I think, just thinking about the whole marketplace and their experience, like the carriers also want great experience with visibility. They don't want it to be hard either. They want it to be precise and accurate. They don't want to get blamed for being off by 2 inches and getting a detention charge, and maybe Walmart denying, an entry of a new product or something like that because they can't get it together, the shipper. And so, I think to your point, Aman, the fact that you guys have made it easy for carriers to sign up, we can't forget their portion in the visibility equation.
And Grace, sorry not to beat this to death, but some feedback that I got from the drivers when we presented the earlier app was this: hey, you will click this and you will click that. And that guy said, I still remember because I personally interviewed so many of the drivers and their families, do you even look at my hand? It's so big. This font size, this will be a lot of fat fingering over here. These kind of subtle feedback is also very important to be incorporated in the designs of a system site. Anyway.
No, that all wraps into all this working, right? If we can't have every single link in the supply chain in on creating a more visible logistics experience, then it's going to take much longer to fix those problems and to obtain the ROI at the end of the day. So very valid points as well. I think our whole panel here, you guys have been incredible as a part of this discussion and from such different points of views as well. So appreciate that. And Katie, I'll leave this over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Grace. Thanks to the team here, guys. I told you it was going to be a good conversation. So big thanks to Aman with Highway Haul, Adam over there at the Robinson Agency, and Krenar with Tive. Huge thanks to the folks at Tive, too, for putting this entire presentation together. Really enjoyed it. So thanks for your time. And one final reminder to the audience, we will be sending out a link of this recording tomorrow. So check your inbox, be sure to share it with your colleagues or rewatch it for some great information and insights. Thanks again, guys. Please join us next time. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye.